Cities are one of the major exponents of human development. Proof of this is that more than half of the world's population is drawn to the opportunities that can be found in them. But it is clear that this development model carries with it a high cost to the deterioration of the environment. This has forced a profound rethinking of the strategy followed until now, so alternatives are being sought which are more respectful of nature. The rural environment offers many valuable practical examples which make possible the sensible use of natural resources and contribute to the conservation of biodiversity. For this reason, it is of vital importance to save, protect and promote traditional sustainable customs and their associated cultural values. The Biosphere reserves aim to harmonize the conservation of natural resources with the socio-economic development of the local populations in accordance with a sustainable use model. The UNESCO Man and Biosphere Programme, MAB, originated in 1971 and just 4 years later gave shape to the Biosphere Reserve and with it the conception of the World Network of Biosphere Reserves. In June 2011, the World Network comprised of 580 biosphere reserves spread throughout 114 countries. The country with the greatest number of reserves is the United States of America, followed by Russia, and in third place are Spain and Mexico with 40 reserves. Of particular importance is the existence of two reserves with international boundaries, Intercontinental del Mediterráneo and Transfronteriza Jerez-Xurés, which presume to be the materialization of one of the aspirations of the Man and Biosphere Programme of crossing frontiers. 3 biosphere reserves are located in high mountain landscapes, where signs of glaciations can be clearly appreciated. These are Sierra Nevada, Ordesa Viñamala and Picos de Europa. The water from the snowfields is made use of in a unique way in Sierra Nevada, whose nutritive irrigation channels extend the maximum use of the pastures, supply the springs, irrigate the crops, and benefit the diversification of ecological niches. This contributes to increasing its already existent, significant biodiversity. In Ordesa Viñamala, we find the wildest Pyrenean countryside with spectacular peaks, valleys, canyons and forests in which plants and animals have adapted to the specific environment in which they live. In the Picos de Europa Reserve, the meadows and herds are essential elements of the countryside and the foundation of an established livestock raising tradition, especially of cattle. The variety and excellence of its food products, as well as tourism, are the principal identifying features of the rural economy of this reserve. In lower altitudes, but still in the Cantabrian Mountains, a cluster of biosphere reserves extends from the east to the west on the Leonese, Asturian and Galician mountain slopes. These are the reserves of Redes, Los Argüellos, Alto Bernesga, valleys of Omaña and Luna, Babia, Somiedo, Valley of Laciana, Muniellos, Ancares Leoneses and Ancares Lucenses. These lands of craggy limestone summits, of extensive and leafy forests, and of streams and rivers of rough and crystalline waters are the refuge of some of the most characteristic species of Iberian fauna. Its rich natural heritage has endured thanks to the upholding of the traditional methods of farming, such as extensive cattle rearing and the practice of seasonal migration to new pastures. Finally, the importance of fishing and above all hunting must also be emphasized, since many of these biosphere reserves have a long history as hunting reserves, where there are exacting hunting regulations. The natural Mediterranean mountain environment is represented in the reserves of valleys of Leza, Jubera, Cidacos and Alhama, sierras of Béjar and Francia, Montseny, Cuenca Alta del Río Manzanares, Sierra of Rincón, sierras of Cazorla, Segura and Las Villas, Grazalema and Sierra de las Nieves. In the Sistema Ibérico Mountains, the valleys of Jubera, Leza, Cidacos and Alhama provides the most spectacular nature, as well as a rich paleontological and cultural heritage, and where the Celt-Iberian city of Contrebia-Leucade is located. In the biosphere reserves of the sierras of Béjar and Francia, evidence of Neolithic human presence has been found. In this territory, traditional customs still exist, such as cork harvesting, hunting, or the curing of Iberian hams and sausages. The traditional architecture is one of the pillars which sustain a thriving tourism industry, which has in La Alberca and its fiestas one of the highly recommended local events. The biosphere reserves of Montseny, Cuenca Alta del Río Manzanares and Sierra del Rincón are especially known as destinations for green tourism, given its closeness to large cities like Barcelona and Madrid. For this reason, their managers work day in and day out in order to harmonize the conservation, the public usage and town planning. 3 biosphere reserves are located in the Sistema Ibérico Mountains: Cazorla, Segura and Las Villas, Grazalema and the Sierra de las Nieves. The biosphere reserve of Cazorla, Segura and Las Villas extend over rugged terrain, with evidence of ancient human settlements and with landscapes shaped by the cattle and agriculture, which are the principal activities that mark the day-to-day life of its villages. The reserves of Grazalema and the Sierra de las Nieves are part of the large Intercontinental del Mediterráneo reserve, which crosses the Straits of Gibraltar and extends through the north of Morocco, which represents a new stage for the ambitious network of international cooperation. The most notable natural symbol in these reserves is the pinsapo, Spanish fir, an arboreal species whose natural habitat is exclusively limited to this territory and, to a smaller extent, the Moroccan Rif. Rural tourism is making progress in the region, undoubtedly driven by the unsurpassable offer of nature, architecture and traditions, such as the legendary handmade leather industry in Ubrique or the local gastronomy with excellent varieties of olive oil. Halfway between Portugal and Spain, which includes part of the province of Orense in Galicia, is situated the transboundary biosphere reserve of Jerez-Xurés. It unites 2 protected areas with a natural heritage identity and 2 villages of deep common roots, as testified by the Via Nova, a Roman road which united the present-day cities of Braga and Astorga. The pasture ground is one of the most representative Mediterranean ecosystems and particular to the Iberian Peninsula. Also, it is an excellent example of the use of agroforestry compatible with the conservation of nature. This ecosystem is represented in the Spanish network of biosphere reserves by two extraordinary natural areas, Monfragüe and Dehesas de Sierra Morena, which also stand out as wonderful locations for observing bird life. There is a large group of reserves in which water, the activities and the culture associated with it make up the most relevant element. These are the biosphere reserves of La Mancha Húmeda, Doñana, Urdaibai, Río Eo, Oscos and Terras de Burón, Terras do Miño, and Área de Allariz. The last, Área de Allariz, incorporated a part of the famous Laguna de Antela, one of the largest that existed in Spain and which was drained in the decade of the 1950s. A large part of this area is now pasture and agricultural land, with a large part of it dedicated to ecological agriculture. The river Miño acts as a central axis for the Terras do Miño Biosphere Reserve. Throughout its course there is a mixture of history and modernity, as exists with the transformation of the Roman thermal baths into the Hotel Balneario. Tradition and tourism in the ethnographic complex of A Fervenza, culture and handicrafts such as the pottery of Bonche. Lugo is the only provincial capital city in Spain situated within a biosphere reserve. In the Río Eo, Oscos and Terras de Burón Biosphere Reserve, waterculture reaches its best in Taramundi, where we find an amazing example of traditional hydraulic engineering applications such as windmills, steel sharpeners and grain mills. However, this reserve presents other totally different aspects related to water, the Ría Estuario del Eo that is valued for its fish and marine life. In this respect, it has similarities with the Ría Estuario of Oca in the Biosphere Reserve of Urdaibai, which also is noted for its ethnographic and ornithological importance. The birds are the true protagonists of the wetlands of the biosphere reserves of La Mancha Húmeda, Marismas of Odiel and Doñana. These sites are fundamental in the migratory path and the reproduction of thousands of aquatic wildlife. The future of these oases of life is conditioned by the commitment of all parties to carry out an appropriate strategy for the use of the water. The Biosphere Reserve of Cabo de Gata and Níjar also is of great marine value, as in its waters cohabit both typical Mediterranean communities and others originating from the Atlantic. The Trinus of Cabo de Gata has its closest parallels in the Bardenas Reales de Navarra Reserve, whose strange landscape has been carved out due to the erosive effect of the torrential rains. The resource of water is critical in life of the reserve and causes the reappearance of the flora, the spreading of the seeds, and the increase in the grazing. All these aspects, natural resources and agricultural livestock, are dealt with under a careful system of integral management. The island reserves are represented by Menorca and the Canary Islands, Fuerteventura, El Hierro, La Palma, Lanzarote and part of Gran Canaria. The latter offer a variety and contrast of extraordinary landscapes and a biodiversity without comparison in Spain. Such wealth is also reflected in the uses, customs and traditions, and these the islanders sustain with great pride in their cultural identity. The Spanish network of biosphere reserves is one of the largest and most active due to the commitment of the individual reserves and solid institutional support by the state. In 2001, the Premio Príncipe de Asturias a la Concordia was awarded to the World Network of Biosphere Reserves, recognizing its value and contribution to the conservation of the planet and the well-being of humanity. However, the major importance of the biosphere reserves is in the daily and modest action of the people who live in them and who make an effort to maintain a lifestyle compatible with the conservation of the natural environment and of the traditions, without renouncing them for the implementation of innovative initiatives. Whatever product emerges from these premises has an enormous added value. They are the palpable demonstration that other forms of development and progress are possible. They are symbols of small successes but great achievements.